The sacred cow, the hidden mechanics, and why only 1 out of 100 consultants ever scale past a million. If you spend any amount of time consuming content about growing a consulting business, you have heard the same advice recycled so many times that you could probably recite it in your sleep. Post daily on LinkedIn, build a lead magnet, cold DM 50 people a day, niche down harder, sell outcome instead of hours, book calls with a VSL. Every second founder and creator in this space says the exact same thing in slightly different words, and that is precisely why they all sound generic and why almost all of them are stuck at the same revenue ceiling. Here is a number that should bother you. Only about 1 out of every 100 consultants who try to build an online consulting business will ever scale past a billion. The other 99 will stay stuck somewhere between 5k and 30k a month, running the same playbook they downloaded from some guru's free course, wondering why it stopped working. The reason it stopped working is because the playbook itself is broken, the advice is outdated, or it was designed for a different business model entirely. In this video, I'm going to walk through 10 things that the consulting world treats as gospel, things you have probably built your entire strategy around, and I'm going to show you why each one is silently killing your pipeline, your pricing, your close rate. For each one, I'll give you a hidden mechanic that actually works, the thing that the top 1% are doing instead while everyone else is busy following the old playbook. This is going to take a while. Get comfortable, take notes, and be prepared for some of this to feel uncomfortable, because at least 2 or 3 of these are going to describe exactly what you are doing right now. 1. Why niching down is silently killing your pipeline. The sacred cow. Niche down harder, the riches are in the niches. You have heard this 1,000 times. Every course, every podcast, every LinkedIn post about growing a consulting business tells you the same thing. Niche down, get more specific. Instead of helping businesses, help B2B SaaS companies with 10 to 50 employees in the healthcare vertical who are Series A funded and based in the Midwest. The more specific, the better, right? Well, not actually. Here is the problem nobody talks about. When most consultants here niche down, they niche the wrong layer. They niche their audience instead of niching their problem. And that one mistake shrink their TAM. TAM is total addressable market. To a fraction what it could be, makes their positioning sound identical to everyone else who picked the same demographic box, and leaves them fighting over a tiny pool of prospects who have already been cold DM'd by 15 other consultants this week. The hidden mechanic. Niche your problem, not your audience. When you niche your audience, you are saying, I help HR consultants. This is a demographic box. There are only so many HR consultants in the world, and every one of them gets hit with the same cold outreach from the same type of service provider. When you niche down your problem, you are saying, I help service businesses that are stuck below 50k a month because their entire pipeline depends on referral and they have zero predictable inbound. This is a problem statement, and it applies to HR consultants, management consultants, IT consultants, marketing agencies, design studios, law firms, accounting practices, and about 50 other types of businesses. Your total addressable market just went from a few thousand people to a few 100,000 people, and your positioning just became 10 times more compelling because you are describing a pain that feels deeply specific even though it applies broadly. The consultants who scale past a million almost always niche the problem. They become the go-to person for solving a specific type of pain, and that pain exists across dozens of industries, which means their pipeline never runs dry because they are fishing in an ocean instead of a pond. Meanwhile, the consultants who niche the audience keep getting smaller and smaller until they are fighting 3 other people for the same 12 prospects, and they wonder why growth has stalled. Understand, niching down is correct advice. The part everyone gets wrong is which layer to niche. Niche the problem, keep the audience broad, and you get premium pricing plus a massive market. Second, the lead generation lie. Get more leads. Lead volume is the goal. Every consulting growth program in existence is built around one central metric, which is how many leads are you generating per week. More leads equal more calls equal more clients equal more revenue. The math is clean and simple, and it sounds totally logical, and it is also the reason most consultants have been measuring the wrong numbers for years. The real driver in a consulting business is not a lead count. It is the number of touch points a buyer has with you before the intent triggering event. In other words, the thing that actually determines whether someone books a call and then buys from you on that call is how many times they have interacted with your thinking, your ideas, and your content before they ever raise their hand. What's the hidden mechanic here? Assisted conversions. The middle of the journey is where deals are actually won. The middle of the journey is where the deals are actually won. Most consultants spend all of their energy optimizing the first touch, which is the outreach message, the cold DM, the LinkedIn connection request, the ad that gets the click. And then they spend all of their closing energy on the last touch, which is the sales call. But the entire middle of the buyer journey, the part where the prospect goes from aware of you to actually trusting you enough to book a call, is completely starved of attention. Think about what happens in that middle zone. The prospect sees your post, maybe reads it, maybe scrolls past. A week later, they see another one. Then they hear your name mentioned in a group. Then they listen to a podcast episode you were on. Then they read a long case study you published. Then they see someone in their network repost something of yours. And somewhere around the 6th or 7th touch point, someone clicks and they decide to book a call. If you are only measuring how many new leads enter the top of your funnel, you are blind to all of this. You have no idea which piece of content are actually assisting conversion in the middle, which means you have no idea what is actually working and what you should double down on. The consultants who figure this out build their entire content strategy around feeding the middle of the journey, and their close rate on calls goes through the roof because by the time someone books the call, they have already consumed hours of their thinking and already trust them. How does that work? First touch, where everyone focuses. The middle 5 to 7 touch points, posts, podcasts, case studies, reposts, group mentions, all of them. This is where deals are actually won. And after that is the sales call, where everyone also focuses. So everyone is focusing on the first touch and the sales call. No one is focusing on the middle, where 5 to 7 touch points are, and this is where deals are actually won. Third, your best clients are not finding you on LinkedIn. What everyone says, LinkedIn is where B2B buyers are. Post there and they will buy. LinkedIn is a platform where B2B consultant is told to post on, and there is truth in that advice because a lot of professional buyers do spend time there. But here is the thing that almost nobody in the consulting space talks about. LinkedIn is the attribution surface, meaning it is a place where the buyer eventually clicks the link and books the call. But it is almost never the discovery surface, meaning it is rarely where the buyer first heard about you or first started to trust you. The hidden mechanic, the dark funnel. High-ticket buyers research in places you cannot track. High-ticket consulting buyers, the ones spending 10K, 20K, 50K on a single engagement, do their real research in places that are invisible to your analytics. They are asking for recommendation in private Facebook groups, Slack communities, WhatsApp chats. Not only this, they are listening to podcast episodes where someone they trust mentioned your name. They are reading long threads in niche forums. They are having private conversation with peers who have already worked with you. All of this happens in what is called the dark funnel, a set of channel where word of mouth and peer influence drive the buying decision, and none of it shows up in your LinkedIn dashboard and your CRM attribution report. By the time these buyers actually show up on your LinkedIn and click the link to book a call, the decision is already 80% made. They did not make that decision because of your LinkedIn post. They made it because of 6 conversation you will never see, 3 podcast mentions you will never ever track, and a recommendation in a Slack channel you are probably a member of but never post in. So here is the shift. You should never be posting content for your ICP. You should be posting content for your ICP's ICP. The people your ideal client serves, respects, and wants to impress. When you create content that your ICP feels inspired or safe to repost to their own network, you are putting your thinking in front of the people who influence your ICP's buying decision. And this is the layer where high-ticket deals are actually made. So, what most consultants do and what top consultants do. Most consultants post content aimed at their ICP. Hope the ICP reads it. Hope the ICP books a call. Measure impressions and likes. Result, some visibility, low conversion, unclear attribution. What top consultants are doing? Posting content their ICP would want to repost to their own audience. Content enters the dark funnel. Peer influence does the closing. Result, fewer vanity metrics. Much higher quality inbound. Deals arrive pre-sold. 4. Why cold outreach stopped working. what the secret cow is saying. Outbound at scale is how you build pipeline. Send 500 DMs a day. There was a time when cold outreach at volume genuinely worked. You could write a half decent template, blast it to 500 people a week, and get enough replies to fill your calendar. That time is over. The reason it is over is simple. Everyone started doing it. Your prospect's inbox is now flooded with so many templated cold messages that they have developed an instant filter for anything that smells even slightly automated, and most of them delete without reading it. I'm not saying outbound is dead. Outbound still works, but the version of outbound that works in 2026 looks completely different from the version that worked in 2021. The shift is from the volume-based outreach to single-based outreach. So, what is the hidden mechanic? Single-based outreach. Wait for a trigger event, then send 5 messages instead of 500. Instead of blasting 500 people with the same message and hoping 3 of them are in buying mode, you watch for specific trigger events that signal a prospect is actively in motion, and then you reach out with a message that is so relevant to their exact situation that they think you are a mind reader. A trigger event can be anything that signals change. They just raised funding, so they have budget and pressure to grow. They just posted a job listing for a marketing role, so they are clearly trying to scale their acquisition. They just published a piece of content that reveals a strategic gap you can fill. They just changed their tech stack, which means they are in the middle of an operational overhaul. They just hit a milestone that usually precedes the problem you solve. When you reach out to someone within 48 hours of a trigger event with a message that references that specific event and connects it to the exact problem you solve, your response rate goes through the roof. We are talking 10x the response rate of a cold template at 1/10 of a volume. You send 5 messages instead of 500, and 3 of them reply, and 2 of them books call, and 1 of them becomes a client. The math is completely different, and the experience on both sides is completely different too, because the prospect feels like you actually understand their world instead of feeling like they are just a name on a spreadsheet. So what is the old model? 500 messages per week, generic template, 0.5% of reply rate. Prospect feels spammed, you feel like a machine. What is signal-based outreach? 5 to 10 messages per week. Each one references a specific trigger event. 20 to 40% reply rate. Prospect feels understood. You feel like a strategist. Number 5. The content pillar framework is broken. What the holy cow is saying. Pick 3 to 5 content pillars and post consistently within them. Every content strategy template you have ever downloaded tells you to pick 3 to 5 content pillars and then rotate your post within them. Maybe your pillars are leadership, consulting tips, personal stories, industry trends, client wins. Sounds clean and organized, right? The problem is that this framework was designed for visibility, meaning it is optimized to get you in front of as many eyeballs as possible, and visibility alone has never closed a single consulting deal in the history of the internet. So, what is the hidden mechanics? The belief stack. You don't pick topic, you pick the 4 to 6 belief your ICP must hold before they will buy. The way the top consultants right now thinking about content is completely different. They start by asking a very specific question, which is, what does my ideal client need to believe is true before they will be ready to buy from me? Then they reverse engineer every single piece of content to install one of those beliefs. Let me give you an example. If you sell demand generation service to consultants, your belief stack might look something like this. Belief 1, referrals alone will never get you past 30K a month. Belief 2, the bottleneck in your business is your pipeline, and your pipeline is a system you can build. Belief 3, most of the tactics you have been taught were designed for SaaS companies and they will actively hurt a consulting business. The right system can get you predictable inbound within 90 days. Belief 5, doing this yourself will take you 12 months, but getting help will take you 12 weeks. Once you have the belief stack mapped out, every piece of content you create has a very specific job. It exists to move the reader from their current belief to the next belief. It exists to move the reader from their current belief to the new belief. Your LinkedIn post about why referrals are unreliable is installing belief 1. Your case study about how we build a pipeline for a consultant in 60 days is installing belief 4. Your long form video about the tactics that work for SaaS but breaking for consulting is installing belief 3. When your content does this consistently, it stops being a visibility engine and starts being a conversion engine. Every piece of content is quietly doing sales work in the background, and by the time the prospect books a call, they already hold every belief they need to hold in order to say yes. The call becomes a formality instead of a battle. Here is the connection to what we talked about in section 3. When you build your content around the belief stack and you frame each belief in a way that your ICP's audience would also find valuable, your ICP wants to repost it. That repost carries your thinking into the dark funnel where the real buying decisions happen. Your content becomes a conversion engine and a distribution engine at the same time. Number 6. Why booked calls are a vanity metric. What the sacred cow says. Calls booked equals pipeline health. Most consultants track one number above all others, which is how many calls did I book this week. And on the surface, that makes sense because calls are the last step before revenue. But the part that most people completely miss, a booked call from someone who read 3 of your LinkedIn posts and then clicked the link converts at roughly 3%. A booked call from someone who consumed a long form asset, something like a podcast episode, a 40-minute webinar, a detailed case study, or a deep dive video converts at 30 to 40%. That is a 10 times difference in close rate coming from the same number of booked calls, which means the number of booked calls is almost meaningless as a metric unless you also know the quality of intent behind each one. So, what is the hidden mechanics here? Qualified intent. The metric that actually predicts revenue is how much of your thinking the prospect consumed before booking. The mechanic underneath this is what I call pre-call belief transfer. The more of your thinking, frameworks, and perspective the prospect has absorbed before they get on the call, the less selling you need to do on the call itself, because they already believe in your approach. They are coming in with the belief already installed. This is why the consultant who invests in long-form content, podcast, YouTube channel, detailed newsletter, free training, consistently outperform the consultant who only posts short form content on LinkedIn. The short form content builds awareness, but the long form content builds belief, and belief is what converts. Your free content should be more valuable than someone else's paid content. That is the standard. When a prospect consumes a 45-minute piece of your thinking and walks away feeling like they got more out of it than they got from a course they paid $500 for, the decision to pay you $10K becomes easy because they have already experienced what your brain can do for their business. Understand, the ones who consumed long form content before booking close at 10x the rate. Your job is to maximize the number of high intent booking, and that means investing in deep content that transfers belief before the call ever happens. 7. The real reason your referrals dried up. Do great work and referrals will come naturally. This is one of the most dangerous beliefs in all of consulting because it sounds so true that nobody ever questions it. Of course, great work leads to referrals. Happy clients tell their friends. The cream rises to the top, except in reality, the vast majority of consultants who do genuinely excellent work have referral rates that are embarrassingly low, and they have no idea why. The reason is simple. Referrals are not a byproduct of quality, they are byproduct of specific moments in the client's journey where the client is most likely to share your name. And if you're not deliberately triggering those moments, they pass by silently and the referrals never happens. What is the hidden mechanic here? Referral triggers. There are 4 specific moments in the client journey where referrals are most likely to happen. Build a system around each one. The 4 trigger points where a client is most psychologically primed to refer you are as follows. The first one is the onboarding win, which is the moment in the first week or 2 of working together where the client gets their first tangible result and feels like they made the right decision. The second one is the first major result, which is the moment the client hits a milestone that they can point to and say this is clearly working. The third one is the midpoint check-in, which is the moment where you proactively review progress and the client is reminded of how far they have come. The fourth one is the renewal or offboarding moment, which is the moment the engagement ends or renews. The client is naturally reflecting on the overall experience. At each of these 4 points, the client is in a heightened emotional state of satisfaction, and that is the window where a specific, well framed ask for a referral will feel natural and generous rather than pushy and transactional. The consultants who scale past 1 million build a referral SOP that puts a specific action at each of these 4 trigger points, and they execute it consistently with every single client. The consultants who stay stuck do great work and then sit around hoping the phone rings. Number 8. Your offer is fine, your pre-offer is the problem. What the secret cow says: fix the offer, fix the business. Every consulting growth guru will tell you that the offer is everything. Package it differently, add a guarantee, stack the bonuses, use the value equation, make the offer so good that they feel stupid saying no. All that bullshit. And while offer design does matter, it is almost never the thing that is actually broken when a consultant's close rate is low. The thing that is actually broken is the pre-offer, which is the 60 seconds of positioning that happens before you ever show the prospect what you are selling. If the prospect does not believe that you understand their problem better than they understand it themselves, the best offer in the world will convert at 2%. They will not politely say it sounds interesting, ask you to send a proposal, and then ghost you every single time. So what needs to be done? The pre-offer. It's the 60 second of problem articulation that determines whether your prospects trust you enough to even consider the offer. The pre-offer is the moment on a call or in a piece of content where you describe the prospect situation back to them with more clarity and precision than they could ever describe it themselves. When you do this successfully, the prospect has a visceral reaction of yes, that is exactly it. That is exactly what I'm going through. And in that moment, you have earned something that no amount of offer stacking can buy, which is the belief that you genuinely understand the problem at a deep level. Once that belief is in place, the offer almost becomes formality. The prospect is thinking, the person clearly understands the problem better than I do, so whatever they are suggesting is probably the right thing to do. Your close rate jumps because the resistance that actually sits between "this sounds interesting" and "I'm ready to pay" gets dissolved by the pre-offer. Most consultants are spending hours tweaking their offer, adjusting their pricing, adding new deliverables, redesigning their proposal document, when the real problem is that they have never nailed the pre-offer. They jump straight from discovery quotient into "here is what we do and here is what it costs," without ever proving that they truly understand the problem at a level deeper than the prospect's own understanding. And that gap is where deals die. Number 9. The demand gen playbook you stole from SaaS is wrecking your pipeline. So what the secret cow says here: demand generation is the future. Run the SaaS playbook. Over the last 2 years, the term demand gen has exploded in the consulting world. Every growth coach, every LinkedIn guru, every course creator is telling consultants to stop doing lead gen and start doing demand gen instead. And the concept itself is correct, building demand for your service across your market. So buyers come to you pre-sold rather than you chasing cold leads. The problem is that the specific tactics most consultants are copying come from SaaS companies, and the SaaS demand gen playbook is built for the fundamentally different buying motion. So what's the secret here? SaaS demand gen is a product led. Consulting demand gen must be proof led. They look similar but run on completely different engines. SaaS demand gen works because the product can speak for itself. You give someone a free trial, they use the product, they experience the value firsthand, and they upgrade to a paid plan. The product does the selling. The content exists to drive awareness to the product, and the product handles the conversion. That is product led growth, and it works beautifully when you have a product that can demonstrate value without human interaction. Consulting is the opposite. There is no product to trial. The product is your brain, your strategy, your judgment, your ability to solve complex problems for a specific type of client. None of that can be experienced through a free trial. So when consultants try to run SaaS style demand gen, they end up publishing feature style content about their methodology, offering free webinars that feel like thinly disguised sales pitches, and building audiences full of people who consume their content but never buy. The consulting version of demand gen is what I call proof-led demand gen. Instead of trying to let the product speak for itself, you let your thinking speak for you. You publish detailed frameworks, strategy breakdowns, and case studies that demonstrate depth and quality of your thinking so clearly that the reader walks away thinking, if this is what they gave away for free, imagine what the paid version looks like. Your content becomes a live demonstration of the product, which is your brain, and the demonstration is what creates demand. So this is what the difference looks like. Take a screenshot and never go back to SaaS demand gen. Number 10, your discovery call is why you are losing deals. So what these gurus are saying, prospects ghost you because of price. When a deal falls apart after a discovery call, most consultants blame the price. They assume the prospect thought it was too expensive, and they start second guessing their rates, considering discounts or adding more deliverables to justify the cost. In reality, price is almost never the reason a consulting deal dies. The real reason is the structure of call itself. What's the secret? 90% of consultants run diagnosis calls. The top 10% run insight calls. Insight calls close at 3 to 5x the rate. Here is the difference. A diagnosis call is when you show up, ask the prospect a bunch of questions about their business, listen carefully, take notes, and then present your solution at the end. It feels professional, and it also feels exactly like every other discovery call the prospect has had with every other consultant this month. You become interchangeable, and interchangeable consultants get ghosted. An insight call is fundamentally different. On an insight call, you still ask questions and listen, but you also give the prospect something they did not have when they walked in, a new frame for understanding their problem. You help them see the situation from an angle they had never considered. You connect dots they had never connected, and they walk away from a call thinking about their business differently, whether they buy from you or not. The reason insight calls close 3 to 5 times the rate of diagnosis calls is that the prospect has already experienced what it feels like to think with you. They have had a taste of the value. They cannot unsee the new frame you gave them. The decision to buy becomes much easier because it is no longer, should I trust this person with my money? It is, I already know what this person's thinking, can do for me, and I want more of it. Consultants are terrified of giving too much value on a free call because they think the prospect will take the insight and go implement it themselves. This fear is the single biggest reason their close rate is low. The truth is the exact opposite. The more value you give on the call, the more the prospect wants to pay you, because they realize that if a single 30-minute conversation gave them this much clarity, full engagement would be transformational. This is the difference between diagnosis call and the insight call. Now, what is the real game here? Everything I just walked through comes down to one idea. The consulting playbook that 99% of people are running was either borrowed from a different business model, only true on the surface, or worked in a market that no longer exists. The sacred cows are comfortable, they feel safe, they let you check boxes and feel like you are making progress, but they are also the reason most consultants plateau and never figure out why. The hidden mechanics are uncomfortable at first because they require you to throw out things you have already invested time and money in learning, but they are also the reason the top 1% keep pulling away from everyone else. They are playing a different game on a different layer, and they are using mechanics that the other 99% have never even heard of. Here is the only thing I want you to take away from this video. Pick one of these 10 sacred cows, the one that made you the most uncomfortable while you were listening, and spend this week replacing it with the hidden mechanic I described. Just one. Get it working, see the result, then come back and do the next one. The consultants who make it past 1 million are rarely the smartest or the most experienced. They are the ones who are willing to burn the old playbook and build a new one based on what is actually working right now. So let me just give you a quick summary of what we have learned today. Niching down, niche the problem, keep the audience broad. Lead volume, assisted conversions are feeding the middle. LinkedIn discovery, the dark funnel and posting for your ICP's ICP. Cold outreach, signal-based outreach over volume. Content pillars, the belief stack as a conversion engine. Booked calls, qualified intent and pre-call belief transfer. Referrals, referral triggers at 4 moments in the client journey. The offer, the pre-offer and problem articulation. Demand gen, proof-led over product-led. Discovery calls, insight calls over diagnosis calls. See you in the next one.